All right, so we'll start here. Three, two. Hey, everybody. Kurt Schilling here, along with Gehrig. Hey, bud, what's up? Good
I'm
to have you
back.
back. Episode four, the complete game starts now. I would mentioned on Sunday a couple things to pay attention to. The Boston Tampa series coming up, um, which Boston trumped them tonight. Bregman goes 5 for 5, first career 5-hit day, hits two. Homers drives in four. Devers doubles. He's up to 222. Walker Buehler gives up 2 and 5. Again, I said it Sunday. Probably the biggest, most positive thing I've seen for the Red Sox is that Chapman is pretty uh, locked in right now. He comes in after they Tampa gets some late runs and gets his fourth save. Chicago San Diego series going on right now, just started, and then the matchup that actually happened today in Toronto was Schwellenbach versus Gosman. Can't have a pitcher's duel if both guys don't show up. Schwellenbach gives up 6 and 4 2/3. He kind of implodes in the fifth when Alan Rodon hits his first career home run, uh, and Toronto beats him uh, 6-2. But more importantly, Atlanta falls to 5 and 12, which is beginning to be a hole that is going to be much harder to dig out. Toronto ups their record at 10-8. Gausman goes six, gives up two, goes to 2-1 with a 2-4. Even with Schwellenbach's nightmare start, his ERA rises all the way to 2.5, 2.55. He's 1-1 on the year. Milwaukee's up 5-0 in the ninth. Hoskins hits his first home run, goes 3 for 4, drives in two. Minnesota 6-3 over the Mets going into the ninth. Soto and Alonso homer for New York. Soto's third, Alonso's fifth. Lee pinch hit homer for Minnesota, while Jeffers goes 3 for 3 with a double. Oakland pounding the White Sox. A guy I talked about on Sunday, kind of a young guy making waves. Tyler Soderstrom homers twice. He's 3 for 5. His seventh and eighth homer drives in six. Ryan Langoliers goes 3 for 5, hits his fourth home run, drives in two for Oakland. Texas up 2-0 in the eighth. Vaughn with a 3-run homer. Tyler Mahle for Texas goes 6 on 3 hits, punches out nine in the shutout. Arizona leads Miami 10-4, or beat Miami 10-4. Cincy beats Seattle 8-4. Washington beats Pittsburgh 3-0. Philly beats the Giants 6-4. Cleveland beats Baltimore 6-3. The Yankees beat the Royals 4-2. Toronto beats Atlanta, like I said earlier, 6-3. And in Seattle, St. Louis, Hunter Brown went six, 4 hits, walked two, struck out four, and a 2-0 win over St. Louis. Josh Hader gets a perfect ninth for his fourth save. And then Yordani Alvarez homers for his second home run of the year. That's kind of the rundown of scores and catching up today. A couple things of note today, really big deals in my opinion. I'm gonna, as we try to get into a rhythm on the show. Um, I think one of the things I'm going to do at the end of each podcast is talk about somebody, one person, and it'll be a person in my life, on or off the field, that had a huge impact on me. And I thought about doing it chronologically, which is probably how I'm going to do it. And I'll start with my dad today. But as important, probably as anything, is today is Roberto Clemente's birthday and Jackie Robinson Day in the big leagues. A lot of connective tissue for me in a lot of these ways. In a lot of ways, the Clemente connection for me is well. Here's one of them. This was an award given to the winner of the Roberto Clemente Award on each team, and I was proud enough to receive that three different times. And then the Roberto Clemente Award, which is awarded each year to baseball's it really represents off the field who you are. In 2001, I was honored enough to win the award, and that was one of my two goals when I played. But the tie-in is that in 1972, I went to my first and only professional game as a paid fan. My dad took me to see the final game of the 1972 season when Roberto Clemente doubled off John Matlack for his 3,000th career hit. And as many of you know from my generation, one of the greatest men to ever play the game died weeks later in a plane crash, taking aid to Nicaraguan survivors of a natural disaster down there. And it was actually the first time I ever saw my dad cry. That was his favorite player, who then became my favorite player. And he embodied, I think, everything that I think a man tries to be in life, not just in baseball, but in life. He was everything that I've ever heard about him. The few highlights I've seen of him, he was a life changer on and off the field. And probably just as important as today is Jackie Robinson Day in the big leagues. And I think of all the transcendent moments in the game, that's probably the most important one in the history of baseball. Breaking the color barrier with the Dodgers at a time when this country was still backwards and still doing things the wrong way. Mr. Robinson comes to the big leagues and proceeds to have a Hall of Fame career. And well, the rest is history, so they say. But one of the cool traditions in baseball and Jackie Robinson is everybody wears 42. I don't know if they're still doing that, but that I always thought that that was a very, very cool thing. But what he did and what he went through and what the players of his era went through, and I played for Frank Robinson. I think arguably the most underrated Hall of Famer in the history of the game. Guys like Mr. Robinson and Jackie and Frank, Mr. Aaron, all of those the men of color who came through the game after Jackie Robinson. The racism didn't stop. The segregation didn't stop. The animosity on the field from other players and in the stands didn't stop. Now we're at a point in time in history where that's changed dramatically. And I think if you go back to the year it started, I think 57, and you looked at every year of baseball since then, without minorities, you would have lost half of the Cy Young winners, if not more, half of not more of the MVPs, probably half, if not, excuse me, if not
More
more of the
than
Hall of Fame candidates.
more than half of the game stories. I was
Right.
gonna try and find a way to.
Yep.
We
Yep.
were
That's a great way to put it. You would have lost probably more than half of the game stories. And it was, I can argue, short of maybe one or two other locations, the baseball clubhouse is the most racially diverse place on the planet. Um, and I was blessed to grow up in a time and play in a time when it wasn't a thing. You didn't care what color your teammates were. I didn't care. All of those things. I played with. I had teammates who were gay. And the only thing I ever said to anyone of them that I ever knew and talked to about it was, I don't care who you sleep with. If you can make a pitch in the eighth inning or turn a double play, that's all I care about. And I think for the most part, that's all most players not named John Rocker care about. They care about, what kind of person are you? And what your color is, what your religion is, has little, if anything, to do with any of those things. And it took Jackie Robinson to do. And if you've not seen the movie 42, I couldn't urge you more to go see something to see because I don't think it even touches the cusp of the trials and tribulations this man had to go through. And he did it. And he knew he was doing it for something bigger. And his ability to play the game and not react in situations I think all of us would have reacted is just tantamount to his legend and something he's deserving of, and the game is better for. So I wanted to make sure that we called out that and recognize that for what it is. And my oldest son who sits here and does this with me, he didn't grow up with any of that. I mean, I'm sure racism will unfortunately always exist in this country, but that it's literally a non-issue for people that aren't ignorant and horrible is a testament to people like Jackie Robinson and Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King and people who took a stand and whose life was less fruitful than or less positive than maybe it should have been because of the barriers they had to jump, and they jumped it for everyone. And I think the game, I certainly am thankful and will be forever for Mr. Robinson and everything that he did. And the same goes for, without Jackie Robinson, there's no Roberto Clemente. And there's no a lot of buddies. But Roberto Clemente represented, and my wife and I talked earlier in my career, the two things I wanted to achieve in my career were I wanted to win the Roberto Clemente Award because I felt like that was the award that represented who you were as a man. And I wanted to be the guy who, if anybody I played against or played with, if they had a game to win or lose, you know, do or die, literally die, that they would pick me to have the ball. And that was what I worked for and worked towards. And so, a um, great day that honors some great men. And if you are of the younger generation and don't know who Roberto Clemente is, please do a search and understand that in addition to being one of the most physically gifted human beings that ever graced an athletic surface, he was that apparently every bit, if not more so, the man than he was the player. So
And just on a fun team in a great time in baseball in the
yeah,
70s
yeah. He
where
went from the 60s into the 70s, early 70s, which is, I'm born in 1966. I grew up with the 70s Pirates, and the 70s Pirates were winners. They won, my 79 Pirates, We Are Family with Willie Stargell, who, there's a connection with him and Mr. Clemente. Apparently, he had lost his car keys the day of the flight, and he showed up at the airport 15 minutes late and actually saw the plane go down. Manny Sanguillen's the same way. But Willie Stargell Pops and the 70s Pirates, We Are Family was one of the great, I had a spoiled childhood. I was a Steeler and a Pirate fan growing up. So much like you
but
growing up
do
in New England.
do your research. It's a
Yeah,
great era of baseball. Some great
yeah.
stories that we would
And
never have without Jackie Robinson. And
I, unfortunately for my son, well, fortunately for him, but unfortunately, he grew up in an era in New England and Massachusetts when Boston was championship city. The Patriots, the Celtics, the Red Sox were winning every year, and so he didn't. The curse thing was unknown in a sense. It was something that didn't hang over being a Boston fan when we lived there, because of what the amazing team that I was a part of in 2004 did, and my family got a front row seat to it, and then they got the Disney parade to ride in as well. So yeah, and then I like I said, I wanted to close out each show by talking about a person in my life, a player, a teammate, an opponent, a coach, an influence off the field from, and this segment will be, I have hundreds of people, but I always envisioned that if you got into the Hall of Fame, when you stood up and gave your speech, that your speech was centered around not what you did or who you were, but why you were standing there and why I always looked at people standing at the podium. You're standing there because of the people in your life. And the first one for me is my father. I was born and raised, born in Anchorage, Alaska. Grew up in a couple different military bases, settled in Arizona, grew up in Phoenix. My dad was a superb athlete, big man, 6'4", 240. He was enlisted 100 in 101st Airborne. He was a paratrooper during Korea, but he was a huge sports fan. And the story about me coming home from the hospital to a ball and glove in my crib was apparently my dad. But to all you dads of kids out there were a couple things that I need to and want to impart on you. My dad never pressured me to do anything. The only pressure I ever got from my father was with regards to effort and integrity. He wanted me to play baseball because he loved the sport, but he said, regardless of how you do it and what you do it and you leave everything on the field and you play the game with respect. And I'd like to think that I did that or tried to do that at every turn of my career, but it was weird because when I was probably 12 or 13, yeah, probably 12 or 13, my dad told me I was watching. So I lived in Arizona and we got cable TV for the first, when it became a thing. So we got to see the Cubs every day. And I'll never forget, we were sitting there watching a Cub game one day, and I was talking about something, and I think it had to do with Ryan Sandberg or something. And I mentioned about how lucky and this and that. And my dad looked at me and said, you're going to get a chance to do that someday. And I was like, yeah, whatever, dude. That's what dads say. And I don't know if you guys, if you've never read the book 10,000 Hours by Malcolm Gladwell, I highly encourage it. It basically is a book that goes into research about why the best in the world are what they are. And the theory is that you spend 10,000 hours before the age of 18 doing the thing you love. And you become, and I look back and think when you do the math and you divide 10,000 hours by years, it becomes pretty immense. But growing up in Arizona, I know I put my 10,000 hours in. I was always playing games and we didn't have, I came at the very cusp in the beginning in the infancy stage of computer gaming. So that wasn't a distraction. We were outside and we were making up baseball games, and I made up a billion of them, from the golf ball on the brick wall to the tennis ball off the garage front. I was playing every day, any day, and my dad looked at me and said these things to me, and I didn't realize till I got older and I was coaching and watching. I could see 15 minutes in watching kids play sports if this kid was potentially something special or just normal. And there were certain ways you move and certain things you did. Apparently, my dad saw that in me. So I ended up going to high school, and I get cut. I don't make my varsity team. I get cut my junior year. And I grew up with a group of people in Paradise Valley, Arizona. We all grew up together. I come from a very lower middle class family. My dad was Army. My mother was she was a cashier. But we didn't want for anything. But the whole play the game right and leave everything on the field motto kind of came into play after I got cut my junior year. A bunch of parents whose sons also got cut put a petition together to have the coach of our team fired. And we were a nationally ranked high school team. We were an incredibly good team. I played with a couple guys, and there were a couple guys after me that went pro. But the person with the uh, leading the effort to get my head coach fired came to our house. And my dad, I answered the door, and my dad came to the door, and the gentleman said, "Hey, we think it's unfair that your son got caught. He certainly deserves to be on the varsity, and we believe a couple other players went through this and shouldn't go through this. And we don't think it's fair, and we think Coach Hatcher should get fired." And my dad looked at him and said, "I don't know about you, but I'm going to let my son grow up in the real world. He's going to work for people he doesn't like. He's going to play with people he doesn't like. He's going to be around people he doesn't like. All of those things are true. It's up to him to fix it. If he's not making the team because of a personality issue, then he needs to fix that. If he's not making the team, I don't believe the coach is bringing the 15, 20 best players uh, and leaving some out because he doesn't like them. I think that the coach is trying to win, and he doesn't think my son's one of the best players. So my son needs to fix it. And I was standing there listening to this conversation, and I'm not using the athletic comparison, but I remember when I heard the Michael Jordan story about him getting cut from his high school team, and thinking, in a sense, we both learned the same way. We both learned, to me, the right way. I had to fix it. I eventually did fix it. I made the varsity team my senior year, and all the stuff that goes with that. But it was a lesson that I never forgot. And as I started to coach young kids, and for you coaches out there, I implore you, well, let me back up. For all you parents out there, I can tell you this. In kids' sports, the only people that screw it up it's never the kids. It's always the parents. And so in this sense, I would have, I coached fast pitch softball with my daughter. I coached my son in baseball. And one of the lessons that I would bring every year to the parents first was, listen, your kid's not the next Willie Mays. And if he is, great, but the chances and the odds are really high he's not. So my job is not to teach the next Willie Mays. If the next Willie Mays shows up, I'll do everything I can do to help him. My job is to teach your child to be a part of a team, to understand their role, to understand responsibility, to understand accountability, to play the game with integrity. Little things. I made the kids on my team wear the uniform the same way. No high socks, low socks. Everybody wears the same uniform because we're all on the same team. And it was one of the things I learned early on in life. And the name on the front of your jersey is far more important than the name on the back. And then eventually I didn't realize all of this until I was in my first World Series and we won, which was, wow, if nobody cares who gets the credit, you can, it's an Abe Lincoln quote, right? You can get a team can achieve anything. Learned that in '04 in spades. And those are the lessons I carried forward. But if you're coaching young men or women, your job is to help them be better people, and be better athletes, obviously. But let me give you, I'm gonna tip you in on something. If you're a 15-year-old Legion baseball coach, you're not. on the Yankees' future managing list. You're not going to manage in the big leagues, all right? Your job is to make the young men and women that you're coaching be better people when they leave you. And one of the signs you will always get from the good ones is athletes will always go back to say hello to their former coaches or to be involved in their lives after they leave their teams because you have an influence on them that is far outside the lines of the baseball or softball field. And that was something I always aspired to be. I don't know if I always achieved it, but I always tried to get it. Some of my most memorable moments in sports aren't on the field in Toronto or in Arizona or Boston. They're with my we won our championship, I think, in your 13-year-old season. It was one of the most exciting. We were underdogs and we won, and we had achieved something. And I'll never forget that moment. My daughter's the same way. We had Gabby and we took the team to Florida and played against competition far better than us, and we won some games. And those are the moments that I still carry. I don't remember many of my little league. I do have some of my memories from them because those were some of the most painful. But I don't remember the bits and pieces of every day of Little League. But those moments, those teaching moments, and as a coach and a parent, there are immense amounts of teaching moments inside the game when you're on the field with young men and women. So that's a little piece I want to do every episode, talking about people in my life who influenced me. And I'll kind of, like I said, I'll kind of go in chronological order, starting with my dad tonight. So. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 4. Anything from you, G?
I was just gonna ask, as a upcoming dad, talking about your dad in spades and saying how much influence he had on you. It's a hard line to draw, especially like you're talking about with parents nowadays, is how to be involved versus to being too involved. What age would you say you can kind of tell? Because it was a very hard line to walk with your kids. I was
Right,
probably the most interested in
right,
sports of them, and even that I wasn't like you
right.
know? And what age would you say you started to notice that for your kids? And is it different for every kid, you think?
Well, first of all, it's a great question. Secondly, and we've talked about this. Gehrig and I have been. He was my first child, and so we've always been very, very close. And one of the things that I have a different perspective. I told you this. I never realized the disadvantages of your life until we actually talked about it. The expectations for you when you stepped on the field were so different than me. I didn't have expectations growing up. I was Cliff Schilling's son, and and I wasn't former major leaguer Cliff Schilling. And so I never really, and I'll regret it as long as I live. I didn't understand the additional pressure that the game came with for you and for Gabby and for all of my kids. You know, the challenge was when you were young, you had very natural everything around baseball. I mean, my God, you're in the cage with David Ortiz and Manny Ramirez.
Yeah, I mean, I literally grew up
Right,
in it,
right.
so it
I
did
don't
come
know if you
naturally
want
at
to
that
talk
age.
about the
And I
health
was
stuff, but
I was also like, so even for like other kids that were around, like Jake Timlin I grew up with, Tanner Johnson, Randy Johnson, like all these kids that I were also like, I was even more
right,
given access. It was crazy at that
right.
time. But that more of the question what I'm asking is like, when do you think it's an okay time to start pushing that kid when you see that they're like you and this is
Right.
something that,
Well,
okay, he can do this.
right.
Like,
That's another great question. I don't think there is a time to push,
okay, that's
right?
probably the
I
right
think
answer.
there's,
But
I
as a
never
as
got
an
pushed.
upcoming dad, I don't
Yep.
know. That's
No,
why.
that's a great question. I never got pushed, but I got guided. And that was the difference, right? My dad was like, if you're going to do this, you're going to do it right. You're going to put your effort into it, blah, 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 blah. Until it got to a point where we started to realize that there was going to be a potential future beyond high school. But up until that point, the only lessons you want to teach your kid are the lessons I tried to play the game hard. That was the one thing about you. No matter where you went, you were always a phenomenal teammate, right? You knew how to be and act on the bench, and you weren't always a star player. You were never a superstar player.
Yeah.
And for me, and again, I don't know if you want to talk about health issues, but physically, that's where you hit the wall. You just didn't grow. You didn't get my body. Well, thank God in many ways, but you're very slim built, And the human body to play a a sport like baseball has to be built a certain way. And I don't care how much you want to play in the big leagues. If you're 5'2" and you weigh 204 pounds, it's not happening. And those are rare limitations. I mean, guys like Dustin Pedroia, not only did he break every mold, guy won an MVP. He wasn't just a big league baseball player, he's a superstar. So I don't ever want to limit somebody to that extent. But you'll notice, you'll see it. You'll see, my inkling is to believe that your child will have a lot of natural athletic ability because of us and because of who you are and what you have your child doing. You'll start to notice. But if you have to push, right? And that was the thing is my dad pushed me to go out and play more
But you
because
hear the stories about like the Tiger dad
right,
and
right,
people like that. So there
right.
there is a because you're
See,
what you're saying is right.
right,
Like you don't push, you're the
right.
guiding
But
force, like the
so I know
guideline.
The
The
Williams sisters, right? And
yeah,
Tiger Woods. But
exactly.
think about this. There are, I don't know what the number is, 7 billion people on the planet.
Yeah, exactly. The
There's
chance of
one
them
Tiger.
being that
There's one
is
Tiger.
insane. But
Right.
there are guys like I'm blanking. There's one right now in the McCaffrey. McCaffrey's
Yeah.
dad was like that
Oh
too.
yeah.
Like there are guys that is kind of the driving
Well, the
force that
Watts family.
yeah, exactly.
Right? The
Exactly.
Watts family, and I talked about Jeff Conine's son, Bichette, Holiday. I mean, it. There are genetics that, if they're passed down, they become instantly obvious at a certain age. And I did things in grade school that, in my mind, when I look back, were kind of okay. This is I was like winning field day. Like I could do all those things because we played all the sports, right? These parents that are travel team baseball for their son 365 days a year,
Yeah,
that
that's
only
different.
works if the kid wants it,
Wants it. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Because
Which is
once
what
you
I'm
go,
saying. Like that was what my initial question was too.
yes,
Like what age did you had
right.
to come to that reality
Here's
for
what I
some
would
of
tell you
us?
as a parent. If you have to push your kid to do something because you want them to do it, they're an X whatever waiting to happen. The second
Yeah.
you're not overseeing them, they're going to quit. The game has whatever they're doing, from playing the piano to ballet to the NFL, playing football, if they're not walking off the performance stage feeling better about themselves or feeling motivated, it's not going to happen because you know
They'll do the lessons you pay for and they won't practice.
right.
That's how it works.
And
I mean, how many times
the
is
game
that?
consumed me as a kid. I had a
It
wall in
was
my
different.
bedroom that back when I came, I had a Sports Illustrated subscription. My wall in my bedroom, I had 4 to 5 thousand pictures from Sports Illustrated baseball players. I played Stratomatic and APBA baseball. I played every when I wasn't playing baseball, I was playing baseball.
No,
Yeah,
I get what you mean. I mean,
wiffle ball, pool ball, sock ball, everything.
yeah. So while you didn't do the pushing as much, you were that guy, which when you're me at least, like your first
Right.
boy, you idolize your dad. So I definitely loved baseball like that. But it comes later that you have that realization that, okay, I'm not in love with baseball like my dad is though. So that's where it's kind of a hard line to walk, why
Right.
I'm kind of asking where you push
Yeah,
versus
and you'll navigate it based on his feedback.
yeah.
You'll
That's
know,
and
right?
it's more
If he's
apparent.
being lazy, that was me. I was lazy. And my dad was always on me because of my laziness. He wasn't saying, I want you on this team to play this summer.
Yeah.
He's like, listen, if you're going to do this, be ready to play. If you're going to I remember,
Don't half-ass anything.
no, one of the things I very vividly remember was my dad was an assistant coach for a couple of years, and he threw, he cheated me because he threw batting practice to me at 85, and everybody else he threw at 70. Like he was always doing that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I made an all-star team, and he was kind of the assistant coach. I didn't play, and I like couldn't. I was thinking, he's like, no, you're not better than the guy playing in front of you. If you were, then you'd be playing.
And that was the case when you were my coach as well. So
Yeah.
like, and that's like the what you're talking about guiding instead of
Well, that
pushing.
was one of the
Like,
hardest things with Gabby. Is
yeah,
Gabby, before Gabby got hurt, Gabby was on her way to doing something special. My daughter, Gabrielle, has Ehlers-Danlos, and she dislocated her throwing arm as a softball pitcher, which is insanely rare. But I coached a team, and she played, and she didn't play as often as maybe the coach's kid always plays. But I didn't feel like I could impart a lesson on her, much less the kids I was coaching with, if I just put her in there because she was the coach's daughter. And same as you though, always a phenomenal teammate and all the lessons. And I got to tell you, getting to where I am in life with you guys, I look back and realize I would have loved to have had a son play in the big leagues, but I don't think I could have been prouder than I am because of the people that you became. You're good. Everybody always tell, and it was hard when you were teenagers, but it became very hard when someone say your sons are amazing people. I'd be like, really? He doesn't listen to a thing I say, but you were always respectful of everybody else. Yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am in the club. I mean, you did all the things I'd hoped you'd become internally that built you. All four of you have, and so for that, I'm grateful. And I apologize for rambling here, but this is clearly stuff I'm very
No,
passionate
that
about.
was my one question.
Yeah,
We
no,
can
so
sign off.
yep, we'll sign off. Thank you guys. We will be back on Friday with the review of the week so far and a preview of the weekend, and then again Sunday night. So you guys take care. God bless. Talk soon.
See you next time.
See, now that's where I'm curious.